Nature of Science, Observation and Explanation.
Assalamualaikum, our wish to beloved lecturer and our fellow friends. Today we will start to present the first chapter, which is observation and explanation. But before that, let me introduce my name. My name is Siti Zahira binti Zaini, and I will continue to present the first subtopic, which is observation. What is the definition of observation? Observation is fundamental aspects of all scientific research. It is also an act or instance of noticing, perceiving, or watching, the habit of observing or noticing, and the information or record secured by such an act. We can call that observation is an essential step uh, where we get information or record for any experiment or investigation. That is why observation is a fundamental aspect of all scientific research. It is also where we simply noticing or watching the changes before we start making hypotheses and conclusion. Next, we will moving on to the type of observation. There are two types of observation, which are qualitative observation and quantitative observation. For qualitative observation is a subjective process of gathering data or information. It is also deals with data that can be observed with our senses. For example, we have color, shapes, and textures of objects. What is meant in qualitative observation is something that we gather that cannot be measured, in which we observe with our senses, which is colors, shapes, and textures of objects. The three examples given, we cannot observe, we cannot measure, right? Okay, now we will moving on to the quantitative observation. For quantitative observation, it is a objective process of gathering data or information associated to, of, or depicted in terms of quantity, and results of quantitative observation are derived using statistical and numerical analysis method, which is age, weight, and volume. Depicted here is mean represent. Okay, so the quantitative observation is where the process of the gathering data that can be measured, because as you can see, there are for quantitative observation, we use statistical and numerical analysis, which is age, weight, and volume that can be measured. So basically, qualitative is something that we cannot measure, and quantitative is something the process of gathering data that we can measure. Okay, now moving on to the role of observation. For the role of observation, scientists use observation to collect and record data, which enables them to construct and test hypotheses and theories. In order to proceed in doing any investigation or research, observation needs to be done. In this process, they will have to collect and record data. Next, it is also used to test prediction on experiment. Yes, by observation, we can also predict the result of an experiment. Okay, next is scientists observe in many ways, which is with their own senses or tools. It is where we can use the types of observation I explained just now. With their own senses means they will be using the qualitative observation, and by tools, it is when they use the quantitative observation. Okay, observational data usually consists of detailed information about particular groups or situation. Next is the scientific process. Okay, there are 5 steps, which is first, we observe something and ask questions about natural phenomena. Second, after we already observe, it's either we choose to observe using qualitative observation or quantitative observation, and then we can make hypotheses. After making hypotheses, we make prediction about logical consequences of the hypothesis, and then we test the prediction by controlled experiments, natural experiments, or observational studies. And the last step is we create conclusion on the basis of data. Now, I will proceed with the next presenter. Thank you.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nozatul Fazlia binti Syamani. Now, let's proceed to characteristic of observation. First, observation is objective. Observation should be objective and free from bias as far as possible. It should generally be guided by a hypothesis. The observer must maintain ethical neutrality. He must consider hypothesis as something to be tested, but at the same time, he must maintain a flexible attitude so that he can deviate from his original plan when such deviation appears inevitable. Second, definite aim. Observation must have some definite aims and objectives. It should be clearly defined before the beginning of the actual observation process. Without the proper aims and objectives, observation will be unsystematic and expensive. Third, observation is verifiable. Observation result can be checked and verified. Observation must be verified with usual criteria of reliability, validity, and usability. It may be possible to check the findings of the observation by comparing the results of different observers by repeating the study. Fourth, observation is quantitative. Although many important phenomena cannot be quantified, it becomes almost an imperative to use some means for quantifying observations in order to increase their precision and to facilitate their analysis. Even the quality should be converted into quantity because qualitative one is objective and can further be interpreted in objective manner. Next, observation is a systematic method. Observation is not haphazard or unplanned. The length of the observation periods, the interval between them, the number of observations, the area or situation of observation, and various techniques used for observation are carefully planned. Often there are systematic managements for controlling the situation if special factors are to be studied. For example, study of honest behavior, sportsman spirit, leadership qualities, and so forth. Next, observation is an affair of eyes. Observation is a systematic and deliberate study through eye. An observer gathers the data which he has seen in his own eyes. Collecting information through eyes is probably the most trustworthy technique of data collection in social research. Next, observation is specific. It is not just looking around for general aspects of human behavior. Rather, it is directed at those specific aspects of total situation which are assumed to be significant from the standpoint of the purpose of the study. People may frequently overlook what is crucial while observing an event or phenomenon, but the scientific observer should look for some definite things which suit his purpose of study so as to economize his time, money, and effort for observation. And the last one, the record of observation is made immediately. During the observation period, it is very difficult on the part of the observer to remember each and every element of observation. He may forget much important information. If we rely on memory, the factor of forgetting will enter and affect the data of observation. Therefore, the observer should record all important information as soon as the observation is complete. Now, let's look at the advantages of observation. First, it is a very direct method for collecting data or information. This is the best for the study of human behavior. Second, the data collected is very accurate in nature and also very reliable, as we done that with our own observation. Third, it can improve precision of the research results. Fourth, the problem of depending on respondents is decreased. Next, it helps in understanding the verbal response more efficiently. Next, observation can be made continuously by using good and modern gadgets and also for a larger duration of time period. And lastly, observation is less demanding in nature, which makes it less biased in working abilities. Observation also has its disadvantages. First, problems of the past cannot be studied by means of observation. Second, having no other option, one has to depend on the documents available. Third, some instruments in doing the observation are costly. Observations like the control observations require some special instruments or tools for effective working, which are very much costly. Fourth, one cannot study opinions by this means, and he or she may require training. Next, sampling cannot be brought into use. Next, observation involves a lot of time as one has to wait for an event to happen to study that particular event. And last, complete answer to any problem or any issue cannot be obtained by observation alone. Next, there are 5 observation tools and recording devices, which are observation guides, recording sheets or checklists, schedule, field observation log, and mechanical device. First, observation guides. These are printed forms that provide space for recording observations. They are particularly useful when several observers are involved or when you wish to obtain comparable information from several sites or observation points or observations of many people. The more structured the guide, the easier it will be to tally the results. Second, recording sheets or checklists. These forms are used to record observation as in yes or no option or on a rating scale to indicate extent or quality of something. Checklists are used when there are specific observable items, actions, or attributes to be observed. Third, schedule. The data requirements are identified by analyzing the core of the problem, the objective of the study, the investigation questions, hypothesis, and the operational definition of concept, and out of the data requirements, items of data to be collected through observation are identified. A schedule is then constructed covering those items of data. Next, field observation log. This may take the form of a diary or card. Each item of observation is recorded under appropriate subheading. At the time of observation, rough noting may be made, and at the end of the day, fully log may be made. The card system is flexible and facilitates arrangement and rearrangement of items in any desired order. And last, mechanical devices. These may include cameras, tape recorders, videotape, and electronic devices. Still motion, sound, color, and time-lapse cameras give a permanent record of events. Microscopic and telescopic lens may be used in cameras. Eye cameras are common in advertising and package research. The camera makes a record that can be analyzed later and may be used to illustrate your evaluation report. That's all from me.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurushami Hamiza binti Amruddin, and I will continue the presentation with the topic of explanation. Okay, what is explanation? Explanation is a set of statements that usually constructed to describe a set of facts which clarify the cause, context, and consequences of other facts. Explanation in science usually use observation and measurement to explain about something we see in the natural world. Explanation in science should match the evidence and be logical, or they should at least match as much of evidence as possible. In simple definition, explanation give answer to why question. For example, why do we have season, why do things fall, and why the sky blue? Each one of them have an explanation, and it increases understanding to how the world works. Next, there are 4 types of explanation, which are: the first one is deductive nomological explanation, second one is functional explanation, the third one is historical explanation, and the last one is psychological explanation. So now, let we take a look at the type of explanation one by one. The first type of explanation is deductive nomological explanation. Deductive nomological explanation is also known as the N model and has been developed by Carl Hempel. Nomological here means per se law, and deductive is to describe the strict logical connection between premises of explanatory argument. The premises of the argument, which form of explanation, consists of 2 kinds of statement, which are statement of initial condition and statement of law and theory. These 2 classes of statement or premises being called as explainant, which should be testable and observable, and conclusion of the argument, which are the statement describing the phenomenon that been explained, is called explainandum. If you still remember, we also learned about this explanation in MathLogic, which are we have premise 1, premise 2, and also a conclusion. Next, the second type of explanation is functional explanation. This type of explanation occurs in the natural and social science. In giving this explanation, the researcher appeals to the function that a structure or system has. For instance, a biologist might say the kidney has the function of eliminating waste product from the bloodstream. Or a sociologist might say the purpose of monogamy is to preserve the family structure. Each one of these is concerned with a function that a structure or system is believed to possess. So, if we're curious about the function of something, we will create an explanation to explain about that function. So, this is called as functional explanation. The third type of explanation is historical explanation. This type of explanation is explain about the past behavior of human beings in terms of motive, intention, or purpose. Explanation of historical also explain events which have already taken place in the world. In more specific terms, they explain a certain occurrence in the context of history. This kind of explanation also deals with cause and effect in the history. And the last type of explanation is psychological explanation. Psychological explanation is explained on the study of normal function within living things, and frequently Psychological explanation is used as a catch-all term denoting any attempt to understand phenomena related to intelligent behavior. Now, we move to what makes a good explanation. It should always have cause, and then, if we're looking at the things that we are trying to explain, we should identify the component of the system, and then how do those connections between the component explain, describe, and predict. This will be the element of a good explanatory model. Now, if it is an advanced system, we may represent the component of the system mathematically, or use computational thinking of the system. So, that's all for definition, type of explanation, and good explanation. For the next slide, we'll be presenting by other presenter.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Asma Amira binti Abdullah and I will proceed the presentation on the ways of explanation. There are two ways on how to make an explanation, which are arguments and justification. The first one is arguments. Arguments attempt to show that something is, will be, or should be the case. Explanations try to show why or how something is or will be. In other words, argument is an exchange of diverging in opposite view and its aim is to contribute knowledge. For example, Joe said to his friend, "Fred, your cat has fleas. Observe, the cat is scratching right now." From the statement, we can see that Joe has made an argument that the cat has fleas. However, if both of them agree that the cat has fleas, they may further question why this is so and put forth an explanation. The attempt is not to settle whether or not some claim is true, but to show why it is true. Next, justifications. Justification is the reason why someone properly holds a belief, the explanation as to why the belief is a true one. Justification, also known as the action of showing something to be right or reasonable. For example, attempts to justify a thief usually explain the motives of break into someone's store to get food for his family, otherwise they will die. Here, the action seems justified. He got a good reason to do that. We might think that he owes the store owner compensation, but we therefore will not criticize for what he did. Example on scientific explanation. For example, why do objects fall to the ground? The answer is because there is a force called gravity that attracts every object in the universe to every other object. Why? Bigger objects produce larger forces of gravity. The closer two objects are together, the larger the force of gravity. The Earth's gravity is easy to observe because it's huge and nearby. These are the explanations. Fact, hypothesis, theory, and law are explanation. Fact is observation about the world around us. For example, it's bright outside. Hypothesis is a proposed explanation for a phenomenon made as a starting point for further investigation. For example, it's bright outside because the sun is probably out. Theory is a well-substantiated explanation acquired through the scientific method and repeatedly tested and confirmed through observation and experimentation. For example, when the sun is out, it tends to make it bright outside. Law is a statement based on repeated experimental observations that describes some phenomenon of nature. Prove that something happens and how it happens, but not why it happens. For example, Newton's law of universal gravitation. More example. For the fact, maybe when you were a kid, You might be wondering why some of your friends got curly hair and some of them have a straight hair. The hypothesis is they both inherit from their own mother or father. The theory is the DNA gene is different for every people, therefore everyone will not have the same traits. The theory of evolution will explain on how character traits inherited. The law is law of inheritance. Another example is you see the apple falling down from the tree. The hypothesis is the apple falling down from the tree because of the gravity force that pulled it to the ground. The theory is the theory of gravity will explain the motions of objects, and the law is the Newton's law of universal gravitation. That's all for observation and explanation. I hope that this explanation will help you guys to understand this topic more better. Thank you.
If you have any questions, feel free to ask. That's all from us. Thank you for watching. Bye!